Breaking news. You won't believe what just hit the Dallas timeline, because people online are claiming Yella Beezy got confronted, maybe even attacked, by folks tied to MO3's side at or around a court appearance. Now off rip, let's keep this 100. There is no confirmed police report or mainstream courthouse statement saying a full-on attack happened inside the courtroom. What we've got right now is heavy rumor smoke coming from social media, fan pages, and a couple local gossip accounts that swear something popped off. And the reason this rumor is moving so crazy is because the case itself is already one of the most tense situations in Texas hip-hop. Here's what is official and on record. Yella Beezy is facing capital murder for hire charges tied to the 2020 killing of MO3 on I-35E in Dallas. Prosecutors allege he hired Q and White to carry out the hit. Beezy's 2026 trial date has been set for February 2nd, 2026, and he's currently out on bond but on strict house arrest, with the judge recently approving limited weekly studio time while he waits for trial. So every time he steps near a courtroom, the whole city and the whole internet is already on edge. That's why when a few accounts started posting MO3 affiliates ran down on Beezy in court, the internet instantly latched on. TikTok detectives started saying they heard there was a scuffle in a hallway. Twitter Spaces spun it into a full story about beef boiling over. And the comments, acting like this was inevitable, because emotions around Mo3 are still raw, and people feel like this case is bigger than just paperwork. But again, no clear video of an in-court attack has surfaced, and no verified outlet has confirmed injuries or arrests tied to a courthouse assault. So right now, treat this like what it is, a fast-moving rumor sitting on top of a real high-stakes case. If something truly happened on courthouse grounds, it's the kind of thing Dallas media and official records will confirm quick. Until then, the timeline is running off vibes, and this case has everybody's nerves cooked. Alright, let's really lay this out clean and hood real for you two, because this rumor only makes sense if you understand the climate around this whole situation. The claim floating right now is that Yella Beezy got confronted, and some folks are even saying attacked, by people connected to Mo3's camp at or around a court appearance. Key words, people are saying. This is not coming from an official courthouse memo. This isn't a confirmed police statement, and there's no mainstream report on record verifying a physical attack inside the courtroom. What we're dealing with is a fast-moving Dallas timeline rumor sitting on top of a very real, very tense case. And that combination, that's gasoline. First, the real backdrop. Beezy is currently facing capital murder for hire charges connected to MO3's 2020 killing. Prosecutors say he was part of the plan to get MO3 taken out. Beezy has pleaded not guilty, and he's been out on bond under strict house arrest type conditions while waiting for trial, which is scheduled for early 2026. These are official public court facts. That means every time Beezy has a court date, even a small procedural one, the whole city knows, and the whole internet treats it like a movie scene. People aren't watching this like a normal case, they're watching it like a cultural war. MO3 was loved heavy in Dallas. His death wasn't just news, it was trauma for a lot of fans and people in the streets. So emotions are still raw years later, and the case being tied to another major Dallas rapper makes everything 10 times more electric. Now, why does the rumor feel believable to people? Because the tension in this story has never been quiet. You've had fan bases clashing for years, street pages posting subliminals, old clips resurfacing every time there's an update, and a constant energy of somebody's lying, somebody knows something. So when a vague tweet pops up saying Beezy got pressed in court, it doesn't land like a random internet lie. It lands like, oh damn, that might be real because the situation been that heated. The rumor basically rode the wave of existing emotions. It didn't have to prove itself first. It just had to sound like something that could happen in a case this personal. Here's how the smoke reportedly started. A couple of local gossip pages and fan accounts dropped those classic half-sentence posts. They ran down on him. Mo3's side wasn't playing. Beezy got checked. Court got tense. No clip, no full names, no timestamps. Just that kind of vague fuel that's designed to spread. You know the formula. If you make it mysterious enough, the audience will fill in the blanks for you. And once the audience fills in blanks, those blanks turn into facts in their heads. Especially on Twitter and TikTok, where people move emotionally before they move logically. Then the second layer hit. Commentary accounts and Spaces hosts started repeating it like it was already confirmed. Yo, I heard Beezy got attacked. I heard they had to separate people. I heard it got crazy, but notice the wording. I heard. Nobody was saying, I saw a verified report. It was a chain of hearsay. One person hears something, says it louder, the next person repeats it even louder, and by the time it reaches the main timeline, the word allegedly disappears, and it becomes, this happened. That's how internet culture works now. The rumor doesn't need receipts to go viral, it needs momentum. And once it had momentum, TikTok detectives did what TikTok detectives do. People started stitching old courthouse clips, not even related to this specific day, and narrating them like they were brand new footage. Look how he walking, he looks shook. Look at the dude behind him, that's Mo3 people. Half the time they're zooming in on random faces that could be anybody, but because the story already exists, their edits become supporting evidence. That's why it feels like there's video proof even when there isn't. The internet creates the visual in your head. Now, what's important to say for your viewers? If a real physical attack happened inside the courtroom, it would be extremely hard for it to stay hidden. Courtrooms have security, deputies, incident logs, and media access. If something pops off inside the building, especially involving a high-profile defendant, there's usually a paper trail fast. Removals, arrests, incident reports, or at least a confirmed local news mention. We haven't seen that kind of verified trail yet. Well, that doesn't mean nothing happened at all. It just means the most extreme version of the rumor, like a full attack in open court, isn't confirmed in any reliable way right now. So what might have happened? And I'm saying might because we're staying in rumor territory. The softer version of the story is that there was a confrontation somewhere around courthouse grounds, outside, a hallway, a waiting area, and where words were exchanged, tension spiked, maybe security had to step in before it got physical. That type of thing can happen in high emotion cases. People don't have to throw punches for a situation to be described online like a rundown. One loud argument, one aggressive step forward, one security pushback, and the timeline will translate that into they attacked him. The internet exaggerates everything, especially when the beef already has history. Another reason the rumor is blowing up is because people are reading it through street politics lens. In those spaces, showing up to court isn't just a legal procedure, and it's a symbolic moment. It's about respect, grief, loyalty, and standing on business. So fans are imagining this as Mo3 people sent a message, or they weren't letting Beezy feel comfortable. Again, not confirmed, but that's how the audience is framing it emotionally. And emotion is what makes stories viral. You also gotta clock the algorithm angle. Beezy attacked in court is the kind of headline that triggers instant clicks. It's got violence, rivalry, courtroom drama, and a legendary name attached, Mo3. It doesn't matter if it's true, it's built to trend. So a lot of pages are pushing it because it gets engagement. Not because they have receipts. That's why you'll see 20 posts repeating the same claim with zero new information. The rumor becomes a content machine. Now let's zoom out. Why is the city so keyed up around this trial? Because for Mo3 fans, this isn't just about one day of drama. It's about justice, closure, and legacy. Every update feels personal. Every hearing feels like a checkpoint in a long war. So when they feel like Beezy is moving around in public like normal, going to court, getting bond adjustments, possibly seeing studio time, some supporters interpret that as he's too comfortable. That frustration creates a psychological environment where a rumor like they ran down on him feels satisfying to believe. It feels like karma. It feels like the scales balancing, even if nothing official says that's what happened. That's why you see people almost celebrating the rumor online. Not because they know it's true, but because they want it to be true. But here's the other side. Beezy still has supporters too, and his people are calling this rumor cap, saying nobody touched him, saying it's internet exaggeration, saying the opposition is clout chasing. So now you've got a classic timeline war. One side saying this proves he's under pressure. The other side saying, y'all making stuff up because you're emotional. That war itself keeps the rumor alive because debates drive reach. Every argument under a post is a signal boost. So where does all this leave us right now? In a super specific place. High heat rumor zone. There's smoke, there's traction, there's emotional logic behind why people believe it. But there's no confirmed reliable proof of a courtroom attack at this moment. If the situation was real in a documented way, it will surface publicly through dependable channels eventually, and not just through fan captions and Spaces gossip. Until then, the responsible way to cover it is exactly how we're doing it, acknowledging the rumor, laying out the confirmed stakes, and explaining why the internet is moving like this. And if you're watching this thinking, yo, so did it happen or not? That right there proves the point. This case has the city and the culture so tense that even a vague whisper can flip the whole timeline upside down. That's not normal celebrity drama. That's a community still grieving, still divided, and still waiting for the courtroom to decide the ending. The rumor isn't just about a scuffle, it's about how volatile this story still is. And trust me, if anything concrete drops, actual verified footage, a report, a courthouse incident confirmation, the narrative will change overnight. But right now, we're watching the internet do what it always does in high-stakes hip-hop cases, turning pressure into prophecy and smoke into wildfire. What happened next is basically the internet doing what it always does when a case is already this hot. It took a small, unverified spark and turned it into a full wildfire. The minute those first posts saying Beezy got ran down on started circulating, the timeline didn't wait for confirmation. People went straight into reaction mode, and the reaction started creating the reality in real time. You had Dallas street pages reposting it with captions like, "Told y'all the city ain't playing." You had Mo3 fan accounts treating it like justice in motion, and you had Beezy supporters calling it pure clout chasing. That clash of emotions is exactly why this rumor grew legs so fast. One reason it spread the way it did is timing. Beezy has had multiple court-related moments in 2025 that kept his name in the news cycle. Bond adjustments, hearings about house arrest conditions, and the whole debate about him being allowed limited time to leave home for studio sessions. Those updates kept reminding everybody that this case is still alive and moving toward a 2026 trial. So when people saw Beezy in court trending and then saw Mo3 affiliates confronted him, their brain automatically stacked it on top of everything they already felt about the case. It didn't feel random, it felt like the next inevitable chapter. In internet culture, inevitable becomes true before anyone checks a receipt. The second reason is that there were already cameras and random bystanders around prior Beezy appearances, so the timeline was expecting drama. Every hearing in a high-profile hip-hop case comes with a crowd now. Bloggers, fans, locals, people looking for content. That environment is messy by default. A loud argument outside, a tense hallway moment, security stepping closer than usual. Even a couple people yelling from across a parking lot. Any of that can get described online as an attack. The translation from real-life tension to internet wording is always exaggerated. They pressed him becomes they attacked him. They approached him becomes they ran down on him. That's how rumors mutate inside a couple hours. And that mutation is exactly what you saw online. The story split into 3 competing versions. One version says something physical happened inside the courtroom. Another says it was a confrontation inside the building, but not in the courtroom, like a hallway, elevator, or holding waiting area. The third, and honestly most plausible sounding version based on how courthouses work, says the tension happened outside the courthouse, near the entrance, parking structure, or walkway where opposing sides or supporters might cross paths. The problem is none of these versions had a clear, verified anchor. So instead of one solid narrative, the timeline got a buffet of narratives, and people picked the one that matched their bias. That brings us to the fan psychology, because this rumor is not just about Beezy, it's about Mo3's legacy and how deep the emotions still run. Mo3's death left a real scar in Dallas. People don't talk about it like an old story. They talk about it like something still bleeding. So any rumor that feels like pressure being applied to someone accused in that case is going to travel faster than normal celebrity drama. For some fans, the rumor feels like karma, like the universe balancing itself. That emotional satisfaction makes people share it even if they're not sure it's true. When a rumor feels right, the internet rewards it. At the same time, Beezy supporters see it the opposite way. They see a case that isn't proven yet and a man who's legally presumed innocent, and they feel like the internet is trying to convict him in public before the courtroom does. So they start fighting the rumor hard, saying nothing happened, saying people are lying for attention, saying the other side wants headlines. That defensive pushback doesn't kill the rumor. It actually keeps it alive longer, because arguments drive engagement. Every quote tweet, every stitch TikTok, every Spaces debate is a signal to the algorithm that this topic is hot. So whether you're believing it or debunking it, you're still feeding it. Another thing that made things worse is the lack of real footage. In 2025, People assume there's camera proof of everything. If there isn't, they think it's being hidden. But courthouses are weird zones. You can't always film freely inside. Security can shut stuff down quick. So when no clean clip surfaced, instead of the rumor dying, it actually evolved into they're hiding the clip. That's the classic internet spiral. No proof becomes proof of a cover-up. Once the cover-up narrative starts, it's almost impossible to stop because you can't prove a negative to people who don't want to let go of the story. Then the content creators jumped in. You had reaction channels and local bloggers making breaking videos repeating the rumor but adding dramatic language, because dramatic language is what gets clicks. This happened in court sounds scarier than people online are claiming a confrontation, so the wording got stronger every time it was reposted. That doesn't mean those creators were lying on purpose. It means they're playing the algorithm game. A cautious headline won't trend. A scary headline will. You also saw people digging up older moments to support whichever version they believed. Old clips of Beezy being escorted in public. Old videos of MO3 affiliates and their emotional statements. Old fan-made timelines of the alleged feud. None of that proves a courthouse incident happened this week, but in the internet's head, it creates a story arc. People don't share isolated events. They share stories. And once this rumor sat inside a story about rivalry, grief, and justice, it became stickier than a normal celebrity scuffle rumor. What's important for viewers to understand is that the legal situation is already tense enough to create real-world friction without it needing to turn into anything physical. Court days in cases like this can be emotionally triggering for families and supporters. People show up feeling heavy. People show up feeling angry. People show up ready to stare each other down. Even if no punches ever get thrown, the vibe can still be hostile enough to be described online as something popped off. That's why the rumor has a soft foundation that feels believable, even if it's not verified. In other words, the environment is so charged that a confrontation doesn't sound far-fetched. But that doesn't automatically make the specific claim true. And here's the clean takeaway. As of right now, this is still an internet-driven rumor with multiple versions and no confirmed official backing. The case itself is real and high stakes. Beezy being in or around court is real. The emotions around Mo3's death are real. The rumor that a confrontation happened is what's unverified. If something truly went down in a documented way, it will show up in records or reliable reporting sooner rather than later. If it doesn't, then what we're watching is the timeline turning pressure into a headline. So the bigger story here isn't even whether a scuffle happened. It's how this case has Dallas and hip-hop culture in such a tense state that one vague post can set the entire internet on fire. That's why every court update feels like a cultural moment. That's why people are moving off vibes more than facts. And that's why this situation is going to stay volatile all the way into trial season, because the audience isn't just waiting for a verdict. They're living inside the drama until the system finally closes the book. After that wave of reactions and counter-reactions, the rumor didn't cool down. It got sharper. That's how these high-heat cases move. Once a story hits a certain temperature online, the next phase isn't about new facts, it's about new signals. People start hunting for anything that looks like confirmation. And in this situation, the biggest signal fans latched onto was the way everybody around the case started moving right after the rumor took off. First thing that happened was a sudden spike in cleanup behavior on social media. You know the pattern. A rumor drops, and within hours, somebody deletes old posts. Somebody locks their comments, somebody goes quiet, somebody starts posting unrelated motivational quotes. None of that proves an incident happened. But in internet logic, weird movement equals something went down. So when a couple of Beezy adjacent pages stopped posting for a day, and a couple of MO3 adjacent pages posted vague "don't play with grief" messages, people used that as fuel. They said, see, everybody acting like something popped off. Realistically, people go quiet for a million reasons, but in a case like this, silence gets interpreted as strategy. Second thing was the way the blogger ecosystem amplified the claim. Once the rumor reached a certain size, even the more cautious pages started covering it, but they covered it in that half-safe, half-spicy format. Reports online claim, allegedly, unconfirmed but circulating. The problem is that most viewers don't read the caution words. They read the headline. So a post saying unconfirmed rumor, confrontation happened, turns into Yella Beezy attacked in court the moment it gets screenshot and reposted without context. That's why you saw the wording escalate across the day. One page posts pressed, another page reposts it as ran down on, another page calls it an attack, and by evening you've got people speaking like they were there. Then came the audio-visual proof hunting. There wasn't any verified clip of a courtroom fight surfacing, so the internet did what it always does. It started manufacturing clarity out of fragments. People were uploading random courthouse exterior videos from other days, or old Beezy walks, or even generic Dallas courthouse crowd footage and labeling it as this day. Again, not necessarily malicious. Sometimes fans honestly don't realize the clip is old, but once it's online with the right caption, it becomes evidence. TikTok especially is built for this. One creator stitches a clip and says, "This was today outside court." The next creator duets it with, "Yup, this is where it happened." And all of a sudden, a recycled video starts living as truth in the algorithm. Some viewers were actually trying to debunk it, and ironically, that kept it alive too. They were posting side-by-side comparisons like, "This clip is from last year," or "This angle is from a different hearing." And then the comments would turn into a war. The debunkers would say, "Y'all spreading fake news," and the believers would reply, "Even if that clip old, something still happened." That's a key internet dynamic. Once people emotionally commit to a storyline, they don't need proof anymore. They need validation. So even a debunk gets twisted into they trying to hide it. At the same time, a new micro rumor formed around courthouse security. A couple accounts claim Beezy was moved differently than usual. Some said security walked him out quicker. Some said they saw extra deputies. Some said entrances were being controlled tighter. None of this has been confirmed publicly, and in high-profile cases, extra security is normal anyway, but those claims added texture to the big rumor. Fans read it like, oh, they tightened things up because something already happened. Again, maybe yes, maybe no. But it shows how fast a rumor builds a world around itself. Another layer was how the MO3 fan community reacted. You saw two energies at once. One energy was grief-based. Real people still hurting, still posting MO3 memories, still saying justice for Mo3, still emotional whenever Beezy's case trends. That energy is genuine, but the other energy was darker timeline politics. Some accounts were almost celebrating the rumor like it was a victory. You'd see comments like, "Good, he needed to feel pressure," or "That's what happens when you in that situation." Whether people think that's right or wrong, it's important to understand why it happens. When a tragedy stays unresolved in the public eye for years, fans start seeking symbolic moments of balance. A rumor of confrontation feels like balance to them, so it spreads faster because it scratches an emotional itch. Beezy supporters read that celebration as malicious, and they pushed back hard. You saw them saying the rumor was being used to poison the jury pool, or to pressure Beezy socially, or to create a narrative of guilt before trial. They were posting innocent until proven guilty lines, calling blogs out, telling people to stop lying for clicks. That pushback is understandable, but again, it doesn't kill the rumor. It turns the rumor into a battleground, and battlegrounds trend. This is also where insider talk got extra messy. Pages started saying they had someone close to court confirming tension. But when you look closely, the confirmations were never specific. Nobody said, "I saw an assault at 10:15 in courtroom X." It was always vague. Things got heated, there was an incident, they had to intervene. That vagueness is exactly how a rumor protects itself. If it turns out nothing happened, the page can say, "Well, I said heated, not a fight," but the audience hears fight anyway, so the ecosystem keeps itself safe while keeping you hooked. Then you had the second wave of theory building that always comes after a rumor hits mainstream. People started asking deeper questions. If there was a confrontation, who exactly would be there? Would MO3's people even have access to the same spaces? Could it have been outside the building instead? Those questions are actually logical, but the timeline answered them emotionally. Some folks said, courthouse hallways overlap all the time. Others said, nah, security would stop that. Some said, Dallas is small, people cross paths. Others said, this is cap, no way it slides. Nobody had firm facts, so the debate stayed alive. One subtle but important thing, the rumor began shifting from attack inside court to incident around court. That's what happens when a claim can't find video proof. The story softens into a version that's harder to disprove. A physical assault inside a courtroom is a very specific claim. A heated moment somewhere on courthouse grounds is much broader and more plausible. So you started seeing phrasing pivot naturally toward the broader version. That doesn't mean anything happened, it just shows how rumors evolve to survive. And while all this was happening, the actual legal reality stayed steady. The case is moving toward trial, hearings continue. Lawyers keep filing motions, and public attention stays high. That real legal backdrop is why the rumor refuses to die. If this was a random celebrity rumor with no serious case behind it, it would fade out. But because every Beezy court appearance is already a cultural flashpoint, even a rumor about the vibe outside court becomes headline-sized. The story doesn't need proof to stay alive. The stakes keep it alive. So where does that leave the viewer right now? In the exact middle of a pressure zone. On one side, you have real documented tension around MO3's death and Beezy's charges, and a city that's emotionally invested. On the other side, you have a rumor that has not been verified by any dependable public records. That means the responsible way to interpret the moment is not "this definitely happened," and also not "this could never happen." It's "this is what the internet says happened, here's why the internet believes it, and here's why we still need confirmation before calling it fact." Because in cases like this, the internet is both a microphone and a blender. It amplifies real emotions, and it blends rumors into narratives that feel real. That's why a vague post can become a courthouse attack in a few hours. That's why people swear they saw something when they saw edits. And that's why the timeline is going to keep spinning stories around every appearance until the trial finally forces one official ending. If you're watching this and thinking, okay, but what's the truth? You're not wrong for asking. But the truth in this stage of the story is still loading through real-world channels, not social media captions. If an incident happened in a documented way, it'll surface clearly. Local reporting, court logs, or law enforcement confirmation. If it doesn't surface, that tells you the rumor was the internet reacting to pressure, not a confirmed event. Either way, the biggest takeaway is this. The closer this case gets to trial, the more the city's emotions will leak into the timeline, and the more every tiny moment will turn into a viral storm. That's the reality of where this story is right now, and why the next court update, no matter how small, is going to hit like a full episode. By the time this rumor hit its fourth wave, it wasn't even about did it happen anymore. It was about what the rumor itself was doing to the whole case atmosphere. You could literally watch the timeline shift from a single claim into a bigger cultural pressure moment. And that's where things get important for viewers, because this stage shows you how stories like this grow legs right before trial season. First, the rumor started changing people's expectations for every future court appearance. The minute fans believe something popped off at court, even without proof, the next hearing becomes a magnet for anticipation. People start thinking the courthouse is a stage now. They expect tension. They expect supporters to show up louder. They expect security to be heavier. They expect somebody to do something. And once the public expects drama, that expectation creates drama by itself. It pulls more people to show up, more cameras around the building, more bloggers on standby, more fan pages waiting to clip anything they can. So even if the original rumor was exaggerated, it has the power to make the next environment actually more volatile. That's the loop the internet creates in high-stakes hip-hop cases. Second, you saw the rumor become a loyalty test online. MO3 supporters were sharing it like a statement. Dallas isn't letting this slide. Beezy supporters were sharing counterposts like a statement too. The internet is lying to destroy my guy. At that point, the rumor is no longer just information. It's a flag people wave to show which side they're on. And once a rumor becomes a flag, it doesn't die easily. People don't want to drop their flag, even if facts get murky. That's why even after debunk attempts, you still saw the same claim reposted in slightly different words. Not because people had new proof, but because they were reinforcing identity. This is what I believe. This is what my side believes. That's political energy, not factual energy. Third, the discourse started drifting into pre-trial narrative warfare. You could feel it in the comments. People started saying things like they trying to intimidate him before trial, or his side trying to act like victims, or this is the city showing where it stands. Again, none of that is confirmed reality. It's how fans interpret the social consequences. But those interpretations matter because they shape public mood. In a case that's going to trial with a jury, public mood is always part of the background noise, and fans know that. So some people push rumors because they think it helps their truth get heard louder. Other people fight rumors because they think it contaminates fairness. Both sides are acting off concern, but the effect is the same. The timeline stays on fire. Fourth, the rumor triggered a secondary wave of discipline messaging in the community. You started seeing posts from Dallas-adjacent voices saying things like, "Let the court handle it. Don't crash out over a trial. Keep your energy for the verdict. Don't give the system a reason." These weren't official statements, they were community mood posts. But that's a big signal. It shows that even if nothing physical happened, people believe the environment is dangerous enough to require calming messages. In other words, the rumor is reflecting a real fear that somebody could take this too far. That kind of fear doesn't come out of nowhere. It comes from knowing how heavy the emotions are around Mo3's death and how closely this case is tied to neighborhood pride, grief, and respect. Fifth, the story started inching towards something more subtle but more serious. The possibility that what happened wasn't some dramatic brawl, but a quiet, tense, security-managed moment that the internet expanded, like a stare down, a heated exchange, a few people stepping forward, deputies stepping between, a quick move to separate pathways. That kind of incident is common in heavily emotional hearings. It can happen without producing a viral video, and if that's what happened, it explains why the rumor feels real to some witnesses but still hasn't produced hard proof. The internet doesn't always invent stuff from thin air. Sometimes it takes a faint, real thing and turns the volume up to 100. That's the most honest way to understand why this rumor sticks. There may have been tension, and tension got translated online into attack. That translation happens in every city, every case, every time emotions run high. Sixth, as the rumor settled into the culture, you saw a slow shift away from outrageous claims and toward cautious phrasing. That's another sign of rumor evolution. The early phase is loud. He got attacked in court. The survival phase is broader. Something popped off around court. The third phase is even safer. There was tension and pressure near the hearing. The rumor changes shape to remain believable. People who are spreading it may not even realize they're doing that. It's just the timeline collectively adjusting to what it can't prove. But the end result is a storyline that becomes harder to disprove because it's no longer a precise claim. It just becomes, vibes were crazy. And in hip-hop culture, vibes were crazy is enough to trend forever. Seventh, the rumor also started influencing how viewers interpret Beezy's own public posture going forward. Every future clip of him entering court, every photo of him walking with deputies, every facial expression, every small gesture will now be read through the lens of pressure. If he looks calm, people will say he's pretending. If he looks tense, people will say he's scared. If he doesn't react, they'll call it arrogance. If he reacts, they'll call it guilt. Once a narrative locks in, you can't win on body language in the public eye. That's why this rumor is powerful even without proof. It rewires how the public watches the case. Eighth, the conversation started widening past Beezy and into the broader Dallas rap ecosystem. People began asking about safety at hearings, about who's showing up, about whether courts should even allow crowded public moments in cases like this. That's a serious cultural ripple from a rumor. It shows you that even if this specific claim is unverified, the community is still dealing with the real risk of escalation. The grief is real. The stakes are real. The anger is real. A rumor can be false and still reveal something true about the emotional climate around a case. So where does leave us? At a clear crossroads. On one side, the timeline is saying a confrontation happened at or around court and using that claim to fuel a bigger story about pressure, justice, and loyalty. On the other side, there's still no dependable proof in the public record confirming a physical attack inside court. The truth likely sits somewhere in between the internet's loudest version and the internet's cleanest denial. A high-stakes case creating a high-pressure environment where any tense moment can get dramatized into a headline. And what matters now is what happens next. Because the closer this case gets to trial, the more every hearing becomes a cultural flashpoint. If something real happens, it will surface clearly. If nothing real happens, rumors will still keep surfacing because people are emotionally invested and because content pages need fuel. Either way, The timeline won't stop watching this like a series. It won't stop debating it in spaces. It won't stop spinning theories from tiny signals. That's the reality of big hip-hop cases in 2025. So the biggest takeaway for viewers isn't "this definitely happened" or "this is definitely fake." The takeaway is, this case has the city so tense that even unverified smoke can ignite a full-scale firestorm. And that tells you how heavy the emotions still are around Mo3's death and around the accusations Beezy is facing. The rumor is a symptom of that pressure. Whether it's true or exaggerated, it's showing you that the streets and the timeline are locked in, and they're not letting go until the courtroom gives the final word. So that's where we're at right now. A real high-stakes case moving toward trial. And a rumor that lit the timeline on fire because the city's emotions are already maxed out. People are saying Beezy got confronted at or around court. Some are pushing the attack in court version. Others are calling it cap. And the truth is, until something solid hits public record, we're dealing with internet smoke sitting on top of a situation that's already volatile as hell. What you can take from this moment is the bigger picture. This case isn't just paperwork to Dallas. Mo3's death still hurts people for real, and Beezy being tied to that story means every court appearance feels personal to somebody. That's why the smallest rumor can turn into a whole storm. That's why fans are reading vibes like evidence. That's why every clip, every silence, every post becomes a signal. The internet isn't waiting quietly for a verdict. It's living inside the drama until the system gives an ending. But here's the question I want to leave you with. Do you think something really popped off around that courthouse? Or are we watching the timeline exaggerate tension into headlines because the emotions are so heavy? And if it was just tension, not a full fight, does that still tell us how dangerous this atmosphere is getting as trial season gets closer? Drop your full theory in the comments. I want to hear every angle, whether you think it's real, exaggerated, or straight clout chasing. And keep it respectful, because this is bigger than internet games for a lot of people. If you want me to keep tracking every update in this case, every hearing, every motion, every rumor that turns into real news, smash that like button so I know you're locked in. Hit subscribe and turn on notifications because with a story this hot, the next court moment could flip the narrative overnight. And we're going to be right here breaking it down the second anything concrete drops.